Hello there, welcome to another BoBeats video, and today I have a mystery package here. Well, it's not so much of a mystery, I know what it is, but I have not seen it. So this was sent over by DF Audio, and you're probably already familiar with this line of products. I've showcased several of them on the channel before because I think they're actually really good for a synth setup. And today we're checking out the new MINIBAY S24, their new Patchbay. And here we go, wow! Oh, it's so much smaller than the previous one. And just to give you an idea of the size difference, here is the MINIBAY, and here is the new S24. So as you can see, it's a pretty significant size difference. So basically what we got here are TRS connections here, stereo connections or balanced connections here on the back, as well as on the front. And that's a massive difference from the previous version. It's also why it's so much smaller. The strength of having a Patchbay in your synth setup is that you can freely route audio anywhere in the system. And if you have a lot of external effects, you can also create custom effects chains. So instead of having, say, this synthesizer going into this delay, then having to reconnect it if you want to put it on another synth, you can just do it via the Patchbay. Now here's the setup that I ended up with, but don't worry, I will go through every step of the process of connecting things, explaining what cables you need, how normaling works, and I'll also explain my absolute favorite trick, if you want to call it that. But first I just want to give you a simple example here. And here we have the form, and it's connected over here. And if I take this cable here and insert it over here, we get the drum brute. And to add in some effects, we just go here and here. So far it's pretty standard stuff, but let's say we want to add in another effect in the mix. If you don't have a Patchbay, you have to reconnect stuff, put the effect in the middle, reconnect things. But with a Patchbay, we can simply patch the delay into the analog heat and then patch the output of the analog heat into this input over here. So by reconnecting a few cables, we created a totally new signal flow without having to rewire the entire thing. And before I hook this up, to show you how it really works, I just want to say that today's sponsor, the music store Unsunds, actually sell this. So if you're interested in a MINIBAY S24, go and check out Unsunds. They're linked in the description. They also have a lot of other interesting synths that you might not even have heard of. The stuff that you won't find in the big stores. So go and check them out. They've been a great sponsor of the channel for a while now. All right, so one of the first things that you might want to connect to a Patchbay is a mixer or an audio interface. So this here is a little stereo mixer from Bastel. The MINIBAY's connectors are balanced. Basically, think of them as stereo inputs and outputs. So we simply connect the cable to B1, B2, and B3. And then we simply connect them into the mixer inputs, which are stereo. And the cable we're using here is what I call your typical headphones cable. So it's a TRS to TRS mini jack cable. And since the connectors on the MINIBAY are 1/4 inch, we use an adapter. Now let's say you want to add a synthesizer. So here we have the OP1 field, and to connect it we take another TRS to TRS mini jack, plug it in here, put on the adapter, and we'll put it over here. And remember the basic principle that outputs are connected on the top row of a Patchbay and inputs on the bottom row. So now if I press play, there is no sound. And that is because we haven't connected anything to the Patchbay. And if I connect A to B, we get some sound. Because now I've connected the outputs of the gear into the input of the mixer. But this is also the wrong way to do it, because there's actually a switch here. And this switch turns on normaling. More about normaling later in the video. But basically what it does is it creates a connection between A and B. So since we have mixers on these 3 connections here, we can just normal A to B here, and But what it also lets us do is it lets us connect something here while maintaining a connection between A and B. So this means that this little connector that we have here can go somewhere else. And now we're going to connect a stereo effects unit into the Patchbay, and we're using one of these cables. So it's a TRS plug in one end, so a stereo cable in one end, and dual mono. The Electron, of course, has left and right output. And this output, where does it go? Does it go on the bottom row or the top row? Well, it goes on the top row, of course. And now I'm taking another insert cable, and this time it's going into the analog heat. So remember, inputs on the lower row. So we're connecting it down here. So now I want to patch the OP1 into the analog heat. And we're going to make sure that there's no normaling going on here. And if I press play here, you can see that audio is coming into the analog heat, but we don't hear anything. And that is because the audio is coming in here, but it's not going anywhere because nothing is patched and we haven't pressed this button. But if I press this button here, there's still no sound because I haven't turned on the mixer channel. But if I do, we get sound. So the audio is going from A1 to B4, and then it's going back in here at A2 and out again at B2 into the mixer. But let's say we want to mix between the dry signal of the OP1 field and the affected signal going through the analog heat. Well, we can do that by turning on normaling here and then turning up the level here. So now we're hearing the dry signal. And if we want to, we can just bring in the filtered signal. And I also want to show you what I think is the absolute best reason to have a Patchbay, and that is connecting a sampler to it. So now we are bringing in my favorite sampler, the Digitact 2. And again, I'm just using a regular insert cable here. And we have the input here to the sampler, and it's going into B5. And then we take the output of the sampler and we can actually put it here to A3, because that's going already to one of the mixer channels. If I just want to listen to what's going on the Digitact, I can do that very simply by enabling normaling here and then turning on the third channel. So the audio is coming in on A3 and going out on B3. And if I turn off normaling, I could then patch the audio somewhere else, for example, into our little processor here. But now I want to sample. So here I'm going to connect A1 here into B5. And now if I press play, you can see that we got some audio coming in, and we can also listen to it if we want to monitor it. We could also monitor it through the Digitact, of course, turning on monitoring here and listen through the Patchbay into the mixer and so on. But I also said I wanted to connect a mono source. So here we have the drum brute impact, and I'm seeing that, oh damn, things are getting really crowded here. So we have the drum brute impact, and you simply connect it using one of these unbalanced instrument cables. And since this is a mono source, I just need an unbalanced mini jack cable in order to connect from here to B5. And I turn on normaling so we hear the sound from the Digitact, and now if I play a pattern, well, we can hear it. And we can also sample it. So this just makes everything much easier in your studio life, being able to just patch things between different pieces of gear. And just to give you an example, we take the drum brute and we then go into the analog heat. And then we can listen to it because it's coming out, I think, here. Yeah. But now it's only on one side. And why is this? Well, because this connection here is mono. But we can do a fake stereo connection if we want to. Let me just find the right cable here. I know it's somewhere. So this one is a little special. You don't see it that often. A mini jack TS cable in one end and a TRS mini jack in the other end. We can simply put this here and here. Oh yeah. Do keep in mind, however, that now we're faking stereo. We're basically taking the same signal and duplicating it left and right. Okay, Bo, I get it. You can connect things together, but I mean, I could just connect the drum root into the analog heat here and get the same result, right? Well, here's the thing. It's much easier when you have a Patchbay to build chains. So we could take the signal coming out of the analog heat into the Digitact, which I think is here. So now we've created a chain between the impact, the analog heat, into the recorder, and you could add on more effects this way. And it just makes a ton of sense for a synth setup, because instead of having to reconnect pieces of gear together when you want to create a new chain, you just create the chain here on the Patchbay, or you don't. You remove the cables and start from zero. So it's basically making your synth setup more modular. And yes, just to get the question out of the way, you could definitely use a standard Patchbay for this. I think that the main reason why you would want a MINIBAY is because it's great for a tabletop setup like this. It's super nice with a mini jack patch points. It's also made by a really small company, basically like a one-man band, and I really think we should support him and his brand. And without small companies like DF Audio that are doing their own original thing, like where would we be? We would just have a bunch of like Volcas and Roland boutique synths, and you know, that'd be it. Here we have a reverb pedal, and I'm just gonna put the input of it somewhere here, I think. And we put the output over here so you can see clearly what we're doing. So we have a little ARP going, and I'm just gonna make sure I take the right little patch cable here, and we're gonna take the ARP, and we're gonna turn off normaling here. We're gonna take the ARP out, and we're gonna go into the analog heat, and then we go out of the analog heat, and we can listen to the signal from the heat. And then go into the reverb, and then out of the reverb, and back here. And again, we could use this as a way to get the effects level here, and then mix in the dry sound. Finding a nice balance. But the MINIBAY is still great and has a few strengths over the S24. So the S24 is best for stereo sources, and so the original MINIBAY is best for anybody who's using a lot of mono synthesizers and mono effects pedals, because you have more patch points on it for mono sources. But since a lot of synthesizers and pedals that are great for synths are stereo, the S24 definitely has its role, and maybe, just maybe, I mean, you could use both. So, the MINIBAY S24, is it for you or not? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, a big thank you for being here, and go and check out today's sponsor, Synth, the store for music gear from smaller manufacturers like DF Audio. And they do have this in stock, I believe, so go and check them out. I've linked them in the description. And as always, have a great day. Talk to you later.